which is something I believe that we've probably in the past, or we've probably even read about. So let's go right into it. We'll look at what CVS is, what VCS is, what the benefits are, different types, why, and then we're going to look at a very common type of version control system, which we commonly use, which is Git and GitHub. And hopefully, if we have like some extra 5 minutes, I'm going to demonstrate for us some very good reason why it is very important for us to just get familiar with this. So, what do we know as version control system? So it's actually a system in software engineering general that is used to manage code bases. So we use it to communicate, manage, modify, track changes, and then collaborate with others on that same software while we are working on that. So essentially help us to avoid losing our files. Let's look at it this way. Sometimes you're working on a project and it's probably on your system, right? And you are serving it locally on your system. And then the unfortunate thing happens and your system crashes. What do you think will happen? You probably will lose your project files, and that's all. Apart from losing your project files, if you're working on a project and a very large project and it's just on your own system, you know that it will be very difficult for any other person to work on that project, except they want to copy it, let's say with hard drive, and then take it to their own system and work on it and then bring it back. But then that is a very difficult thing. And let's assume they're even bringing it back. By the time they're bringing back, you've already added some other things to your own copy of the project. Now you're going to be having conflicting changes there, right? And also sometimes, supposing you are even the only one working on it, but you don't have access to a particular system, the local system you'll be using at the point in time, and then you're somewhere, and then you need to urgently do something. What do you do at that point? So you're stuck. So you have to wait to get a system. So version control is basically a way to do all of these things and without being restricted to a point. And you can basically track all changes that have been made, the minutest one and even the biggest one there with version control system. And that's basically what it is. So be able to track every single change in the system without missing out anything if you have a version if you're controlling your system. So what are the benefits of this? One thing is that it facilitates effective collaboration. Different people can work on it on a single project at the same time or at different time. And that's the interesting thing about that, without necessarily having to meet with each other or having to work from the same local machine. And then one thing is that supposing you have an issue with your own copy of the project that is on version control, you can just retrieve that, because with version control, you can actually keep snapshot of every project progress. So you can even revert back to an older version of that particular project. Very interesting, right? And another thing is that it can tell you exactly when a modification is made, who made the modification, and the reason why you make the modification. We're still going to see that, but I can just bring it in now. Let's say you want to commit a change using Git into your GitHub repository now. You usually type a message why you are committing that change, right? And whoever is going to see it's going to know that, oh, so person at so time at so date have actually made this change because of so reasons due to the message you've just imputed there. So the person actually knows exactly what is done, what like that's during project development. Remember when I mentioned that if two people are working on the same project and they have to do it manually on their system, one thing is that you can't exactly know fully what changes have been made by everybody. All right, so let's say I have a copy of the project that I'm bringing it back to you. What if you've added one other thing that is not in my own copy of the project and they want to deploy that project for development? Then there's going to be conflict of interest. There's going to be a conflicting error and all of those things. But with version control, essentially, because you can track all changes that have been made and you can literally update your own copy of the project to the latest version, that is to the latest update, you can basically, take out those disagreements and manage them to the various minimum. These are just very few of the numerous benefits of using version control. So now, what makes up the version control system? Typically, you have a repository where you actually store the project. Remember, you're going to actually have a place to store your project. And then you probably are going to have a copy that you are working with. That's what is called the checkout. And then you're going to have a tracking software. An example is Git. to help you actually track that particular project. So you have a project, you have the repository where it's been stored, let's say GitHub, for example, or GitLab, as the case may be, and then you have a copy of your own where you're working with on your code base, let's say on your code editor, maybe on Cloud9, for instance, as we do here in Beacom Dev Center, or on your Visual Studio Code or Sublime Text. That's your own copy. It's checkout, right? Which you can actually update to the latest version of the repo, depending on who is working on the repository at that point in time. And then you can effectively do all the pulling or the pushing or the tracking with Git, the software. So these are basically what makes up the version control system. So now, what are the types? And I'm just going to explain them briefly and then show us more about centralized and distributed. So local version control system is usually localized, just a little bit different from the manual work we have to do. You just have to keep them in disks, and then, but people can obviously update their own copy of the repository, but that's not exactly very common. So it's localized, have them on disks, and then people have different versions at different points in time, and then they can always update the one that is in disks at any point in time. The centralized is like, let's say you have a single repository, and then you copy, and then you push to that single repository. Then you have your own copy of work, and from that copy of work, you put back directly to that repository. I don't know if you get that. So let's say somebody's been on a project, let's say, and then we have a repository. So people, every other person working on that project, we clone that single repository directly. So every time they're pushing that work, is going back to that central repo directly. So that means that they pull and they push directly to that particular what's it called, repository directly. What about distributed? In distributed, everyone, there's a central repository, then everybody also have their own repository, then their copy of works. So one good way you can just do that, and it's just like they have branches. So we have different branches of the work, and everybody's working on those branches. So they pull from the central repository to their own branch of the work, and then they pull it to their own checkout. And also they make changes, they commit those changes, and then they push back. You say that. So we have 4 panes there. So you pull, you commit, you make changes, you commit, and then you push. Very simple like that. So this is what a centralized look like. You have a server, you have the repository, let's say in the GitHub server, and then you commit changes to the repo, you update your own working repository, you commit, you update your own, you commit, you update your, just like that. See that? But for the distributed, everybody, there's a central repository. Then we have your own copy, your own repository, your own branches, basically. And so you have and one of the ways we do that is using Git fork, when we actually fork this to the repository, and then we have our own repo. So that serves as a branch. So what you do is that every single time you want to work, remember that your repository has to be updated. If not, if you're pushing back to the main repository, there will be conflictions. And now you can do that is by pulling. So you pull from the central repository. So just in case someone, let's say person A, person working on the first personal computer, has made some changes to the main repository, you probably don't know that. So you don't even need to ask the person that, oh, have you made a new change? That's not really what you should do. What you can do is just to pull from the main repository. So it's going to automatically update your own repository, and then you can now work on your on that. Do you get that? So you can now work on that particular one after pulling, and then once you do that, that's now that your own working copy is updated, you can now commit back to your repository, and then that is to your branch. Once you commit back to your branch, then you can then push directly to the main repository. And what will happen is that other persons working on this particular project can then update their own working copy, make their own changes, push back, and then that works. And that's basically how major projects are actually handled. So multiple people work on it, on different aspects of the project, even Beacom Dev Center, for instance. Let's say social lender as an example. So you are working on different modules, and then for every single time you want to work on your module, you want to ensure that you pull from the main repo, so that your module, the one copy you have, is updated before you make your changes. And I'm talking from experience. I'm having a hard time. So it's very important that we know that. So always pull, make a pull request before you make your changes and before you commit your changes. If not, it will be conflictions will be there. And that is about how it works. So why version control? Sorry about that typo. VCS. So multiple people can work on the project, like I mentioned, and then an individual can work on the same project, but from different computers. So you don't have to be restricted to one. Every time you have a new computer, you can just clone the project and then work on it. And one thing is that it brings together work done by diverse team member at the same time with the central repo. So let's look at a typical example of what a version control system is, and this is a very popular one. So Git is an open source software, and GitHub is like a repository, like a storage tank for your project, and then you use Git as a tracking device to track and make those changes that I've mentioned. Right. So how do we get started with that? And I've had this presentation before. Sorry for that type again. So Git is a software, open source, and the GitHub as the database basically. And how to actually get started with it is that just create an account with GitHub, and once you have an account there, that is fine. You can create a repository and then ensure that you have Git on your system. And it's very easy to do that. To confirm if you have Git, just type in the keyword Git hyphen version. So it's going to give you the latest version of Git that you have there. And if you don't see any response, it means you don't have it. So if you are using terminal, for instance, you can just type in this command here, apt-get install git with sudo to grant permission. And then with that, you can have Git installed, and then we are good to go, because you can literally now work on any project while they're in a repository. And it's just a good practice that for every single project you are working on as a developer, you have it should be on the Git. On the GitHub, it is very important, because you don't know what can happen to your system at any point in time. So it's just a good practice to ensure that you have it in a repository on GitHub, and then you are tracking it. That is a Git repo. So how do we do that? So once you have your GitHub account, what you want to do, let's say you already have there are two major ways to do this, but let's say you are starting out as a developer. Most likely all your projects are still on your system, right? And it's very easy to just get started with it. So what you want to do first is that you go to the top right corner of your GitHub main page, and then you create a new repository. So once you create it, don't initialize it, just write your name. Once you write your name, create. You even see the from GitHub already create like the help to actually guide you through it, but just in case that is confusing, this is what you do. You go to your terminal, maybe from your code editor or from the main terminal on your system, and then you make sure you are in the project directory, the project you're building. Let's say you're building a Twitter, make sure you're in that directory. And you know that that is just a project that is lying dormant on your system. It is not yet a Git repository. So the first thing you want to do is to initialize it and make it a Git repo. And how do we do that? It's just to type Git init. Simple. So once you type Git init, and it's going to initialize the repo and then make it a Git repository. But all the files in that project are still on the system. We've not added them yet to the repo. So what you want to do is to add them, and you can add them one by one. That is git add index.html or index.php, as the case may be. But remember, all your projects are brand new, so they don't know anything. So it's just a good practice to add all. So and how you add all is just type in git add, then period, that's full stop. It's going to add all of your projects and stage them, for commit. So once you've staged them for commit, you can then commit it. And remember, I told you that you can know the reason why a change is made, right? And this is where it comes in. So once you want to commit, what you want to do is type in git commit, type in M, and then you give the message why you are making that change. Oh, the reason I'm doing this is because I'm tired of we don't like it, and that's why, this is my first commit or whatever. So that is going to commit your changes, right? But that is just going to put them on basically commit them. So what you want to do is create a branch, right? You want to create a remote origin where you want to add those changes. So you're going to write git remote add origin, then the URL of that repository you copied. Okay, so once you create your repository, you're going to see like the URL there. So just copy that URL and then add it here. So once you add it to that, then you're adding all the files you've committed to this particular to this URL. Then you then push it to the main branch. Okay, this is a remote branch. Once you are done adding to the remote branch, you push it to the main branch, and then your work is basically done. You're good. So every single time you add new changes to your project, for instance, what you see is that what you basically have is that even your code editor is going to let you know that there are some new changes now that are not yet in your repository, and all you just need to do at that point in time is git add them, and then push them. Very simple. Add them, push them. So your repository is up to date, and every single time somebody clones that repository, it has the latest version of that repo, and that's how we do it. You version control all your project. So thank you guys for listening. I don't know if we have any question, and I don't know if I still have a little more time so that I can actually change it, show something. You know, the interesting thing is that if you host let's say you create a one-page project and you can host it on GitHub pages, for instance, and I will hope to do that in my next presentation. You can actually host for free on GitHub, all right? And one thing about hosting your project on GitHub, let's say your portfolio, for instance, is that you can make like changes as quickly as possible with version control. So let's say you misspelled your name on your project that is posted. All you need to do is go to your editor, make those changes and commit them. Immediately you commit and push, automatically your live project becomes updated. And that makes it so interesting because, so stressless. And that is why it is very important for us to do that. Thank you very much for listening. I don't know if you have any question. Any question?
Yeah.
Can't we
thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, hold on. Like he asked, any questions from anyone? Any clarification or anything at all what you contribute to anything after this? Contribution question.
Can anyone hear me, please?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. I really love this. Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Breaking.
I'm not sure we can hear you.
Okay, somebody if they don't have a question,
Okay,
ask your question.
All right. So I would like to ask someone to just tell me how. Let's say you have a project on your system that you've been working on for a long time, and it's not yet on Git. Like it's not yet a Git the Git repo. How do we do that? Just briefly, how you can make a project in Git repository and then host it and put it on GitHub, basically. So can Samuel Schroeder, can you help me with that? Samuel, not sure he's there.
Hello?
Okay. All right. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
So how do you make your local project on your local system, a Git project?
Well, from what I learned, we make a commit on our editor. I don't really understand the whole concept, but I think I'll put it into practice today. We make a commit on our editor. Then we were trying to explain on how it is easy to do, but until I put it to practice, I cannot really give a detailed explanation.
Okay. So Mr. Patrick, sir, I don't know, like, do you have some more minutes to just try to show some of those things?
If you can do that under a minute, no problem.
Okay, all right. So I just want to try to show us some of the things I made. So I'm going to open a project now, a Git project, which is like my.
You would like
own,
to
I believe you
expand
can
that,
see.
that terminal.
Oh, okay. All right, so I'm trying to do that. Okay. Just let me know if we can we see it better? Can we see my
Yes.
If you
better?
can still zoom in, yeah, it's better now, I guess.
All right. So one thing is that I'm in this project directory now. If I type something like this status, all right, it's going to tell me that like everything is up to date, and like of course I've not added any actual thing to this particular project. So let's just wait for that. So now you can see my branch is up to date, right? One thing I said before is that for us to know if we actually have let's say Git on our system, we can just type it. So once we type this, it's going to give us the Git version, right? So that's it. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm just going to open this particular project, like it's hosted on a GitHub page basically, and hopefully my next presentation I'll be discussing how to actually host a first project on GitHub hopefully. So I'm just going to open this so that we can see how those changes can come like actually live. So, but pending then, let me just make a change to this particular. Let me make a change. So now we can see what I have here is an address. It's Lagos, Nigeria. If you can see my code editor, right? So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to type in something else, like something additional to just make sure that ensure that so I'm just going to write Mushin, Lagos, Nigeria, and then I'm going to save it. Now, if I come to once it's saved, if I come to my what's it called, my terminal again, and I type this status, what I'm going to see is that it's going to actually tell me that I've made a change to this project. So we can see modified. Can we see that modified there? Modified index.html. Can we see? We can see that, right? Good. So now I'm just going to type, what I need to do now is just to add it. So I can either say git add index.html or git add then full stop. It's still going to do the same thing. So once I do this, all right. So yeah, so I've added it. Okay, if I type in git status again, what it's going to let me know is that I've actually added and staged it for commit. Can we see that? All right, so let me just bring my terminal up. So it's saying that I've added a modifier for what's it called, commit. So I'm going to play my terminal now. So what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to like commit. All right, git commit. Okay, and then I'm going to type in my message, new address. Okay. So once I type in new address, in quotation, I type in. So now I've actually committed this. So what I need to do is now like I git push. Okay. And then we should be good to go. All right. So now I'm just going to wait. So I've done this. It's up to date. If I go back to my page, which is still loading. This next one. Okay, so let's just wait for it to load a bit. So we should obviously see that change I just made now. So it is that easy to actually, and on my GitHub repository too, whatever thing that is there is actually up to date too. So initially, I have Lagos, Nigeria here. You can see it's still there. So I'm going to just reload the page, and then let's see if we actually, oh, okay, it's still there. So let me just totally refresh the page. Hopefully this works this time around. All right, so let's refresh the page.
Mercy, please, we're rounding up.
Time is fast.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyways, we are basically done. So hopefully, if this load up before we actually have the presentation, I will show us how that works. So that is it. And let's just ensure that we practice more on Git. And it's very easy. Put our project up on Git as we are doing them to keep them there, and then we can always access them any point in time. So thank you very much, guys. Mr. Patrick.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
this brings us to the end of today's section. I hope to see everyone again tomorrow, same time, same venue. Yeah, wishing everyone a lovely working day. Thank you so much, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you, sir.